Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of extra effort into responding to this comment. The context here is that I put out the question that for people who think that Has Been Hotel is badly written, why is it badly written? Like, what is it about the show that is badly written? What is the criteria for good writing? And how does Has Been Hotel fail to live up to it? A bunch of people gave me some good responses to that particular question and came up with some like cogent, interesting criticisms of the way that the show is written. I also think it has a bunch of writing problems, but a lot more people a lot more people responded more in the vein of the person up above here. And part of the reason why I'm putting extra effort into this one is because I don't want to have to use TikTok's own fucking comment reply system because it's stupid and bad. When I reply to a comment directly on TikTok, what'll happen is a bunch of people will click through to the comment and then they'll start getting into arguments with the person who left the comment, and then those arguments will turn toxic, and then people will start insulting each other. And I'm the one who has to moderate that shit. I'm the one who's going to have to go there and delete a bunch of shitty comments or block people for being assholes to one another, and I don't want to have to deal with that. Leave the person who left this comment alone, please. Don't go looking for them, because I don't want to have to deal with people getting into shit fights in my comments if I can at all avoid it, please. So, I just want to respond to what the comment is saying because I think it's actually interesting, because it's based on some correct observations that lead to some bad conclusions. So, the comment reads, I have watched the whole show and I can explain in depth why this show is inherently badly written, and everyone will probably realize this within a few months or so. Charlie is a horribly written protagonist. There's our claim. And here comes the argumentation in favor of that claim. She does nothing, is always regressing, and throws her friends under the bus to learn nothing by the end of her arc. Those are the claims that are being made about Charlie, right? She's a bad protagonist because of these three things. And one problem with that is that doing nothing, constantly regressing, and throwing your friends under the bus to learn nothing at the end of the arc, that describes Hamlet from Shakespeare's Hamlet, who, depending on who you ask, I'm not always a Shakespeare glazer, but depending on who you ask, is possibly one of the greatest like literary protagonists of all time. Or, well, theatrical protagonists, rather. Hamlet doesn't ever really do anything over the course of the show. Like, he spends the most of the play Hamlet trying not to do something, very desperately attempting to avoid having to do something. He's throwing his friends under the bus. He's constantly regressing more and more. And at the end of the show, everyone in the court of Elsinore is dead, and Hamlet hasn't learned a goddamn thing. So to say that these qualities make Charlie a bad protagonist is not a very good argument. Also, learning nothing, throwing her friends under the bus, and constantly regressing also describes Walter White, right? Also describes him. So the things that are being observed here is that these are qualities that would be bad qualities in a person, right? Never doing anything, always regressing, throwing your friends under the bus, and learning nothing. These are bad qualities in a person, and because they are bad qualities in a person, the argument seems to go here, therefore, they are bad qualities in a protagonist. And the underlying argument there seems to be that a protagonist ought to be somewhere down there, like a good person somehow. A protagonist ought to be someone who is active, who does not regress, who's constantly progressing, who doesn't throw their friends under the bus, and who learns something by the end of their arc. And that's certainly true in a Saturday morning children's cartoon. That tends to be how protagonists are definitely written, but that's not really the nature of protagonists, is it? Protagonists can be horrible people who stay in one place, who never learn anything, and who never get better. That's BoJack Horseman. So that's not a very good argument, but the interesting thing is that it's based on correct observations, right? In season 2, Charlie really fails to do a lot. She's regressing the whole time. She's throwing her friends under the bus. And I would argue that she does learn something by the end of her arc, but by the end of her arc, she doesn't really have a big learning moment. Like, she doesn't really have a big moment of transcendence into, like, a new and better state of being. She just kind of stops being shitty, right? So these are all correct observations of what happens in season 2, but it's observations that rather than doing... Okay, so one of the fundamental skills you have to have as a critic, if you want to have a good critique, be able to make a good critique of anything, it's also a fundamental skill of media literacy, is the ability to read generously, right? Is the ability to take in a piece of media and go, okay, regardless of how well it did the thing, regardless of how much it succeeded, what was this piece of media trying to do, right? What were they attempting to do? What were they trying to get at? And then once you have an understanding of that, you can go and say, okay, but they failed in this way and in that way and in such a way, and these are problems with the thing, right? The person in question here really isn't doing that because, yeah, she does nothing. She is regressing and she is throwing her friends under the bus, and she doesn't really learn that much by the end of the show, or the end of the season, rather. And maybe that's the point that's being made here. Because Charlie opens season 2 in a place of trauma, essentially, at the cusp of a complete fucking meltdown, right? Because on the one hand, she's trying to run the has-been hotel. She's trying to be her usual bubbly, optimistic self, going, we can redeem people and everything will be better and the hotel definitely works. But then on the other hand, she's in the midst of a horrible guilt spiral about getting Serpentius killed for her dream, right? Which is how she sees it, right? Like that Serpentius died because of me, because I failed to make heaven work with me, because I made these stupid decisions and everything went wrong because I made these dumb bad decisions and it's my fault and I'm a horrible person and I'm a hypocrite and the hotel probably doesn't even work and Serpentius died for nothing and everything's all my fault. Right? That's this guilt bomb that is smoldering in the back of her head that she's desperately trying to prevent from going off, right? She's desperately trying to paper over all of that guilt, all of that repressed anxiety and pain, by throwing herself 110% into the project of the has-been hotel. So she's desperately trying to contact Emily. She's desperately trying to recruit more people to the hotel, and it's not really working very well. And she's desperately trying to redeem another sinner to prove that it's possible and that sinners can be redeemed, and this definitely does work. And because she's stuck in all of that, and because she's motivated by this manic need to keep this bomb in the back of her head from going off, she's very reactive for the whole season. She reacts immediately to almost everything that happens. Vox says a mean thing about her. Well, yeah, I have to interview. I have to go on an interview, and I have to give him access to the hotel, and leave. I have to talk to him. I have to prove to everyone that the hotel works, and I'm not crazy, and this was a good idea, because if I can get other people to see that it was a good idea for me to make the hotel, and that it definitely works, and people can be redeemed, then maybe I'm not a horrible person for getting my friend killed, right? She's looking for that external validation to help calm down the raging feelings that she has inside of her. And so, yeah, she is regressing, but she's regressing because of this. And when she throws, especially Angel Dust, under the bus, what she's doing is she's projecting all of her guilt about Serpentius onto him, and she's trying to make the redemption of Angel Dust her own redemption instead, right? Like her own redemption for this sin, this guilt that she has in the back of her head. And she's using Angel Dust as a means for her own absolution, right? And that's the parallel between Charlie and Vox, is this thing of using other people to fulfill your own emotional needs is toxic and bad. And Vox is the villain, so he does not ever get over this, but Charlie is the protagonist, and so she does get over it. Eventually, someone takes her by the shoulders and says, listen, you're being fucked up right now, and she has a little tantrum about it, and then she comes around, and then she sort of starts to get better and discuss her emotions more openly, whereas Vox spirals down so fucking deep that he eventually gets to the point where he's trying to kill literally everyone around him so that he himself can have a brief emotional catharsis, right? That's the way in which, that's why Charlie is written this way, is because she's meant to be both a parallel and a foil to Vox, because what's being explored with their characters is what do you do about the need for validation to fill a hole in your heart, right? So, like, yeah, these are correct observations, but they are observations that don't really seem to come from an understanding of what these characteristics are in service of, what the show is trying to do with them. There is a lack of ability to read the show generously, and it's really handicapping people's ability to form a cogent and interesting critique of the show. Because Has-Been Hotel Season 2 and Season 1 has writing problems, but these aren't any of them.